Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to a new video. So what we're actually going to be doing is installing a new charge cooler in my F80 M3. If you guys are interested on the details of the charge cooler that I chose, which is a Mishimoto, if you want to hear more details about what a charge cooler is, what it does, why you should upgrade, should you, shouldn't you, go check the video in the top right corner. I go into detail explaining everything. But this video, we're just going to be solely focusing on installing the Mishimoto charge cooler as well as the ARMS Motorsports J-pipe. So we're going to be putting this all in the car, and I figured I would just kind of walk you through it. So there's a couple things that you're going to need in order to get this done. You're going to need a charge cooler of your choice. This is my Mishimoto paint match to mineral gray metallic. I also picked up an ARM Motorsports J-pipe as well, which I highly recommend doing since you're going to be right there. The stock one is plastic, so it's known to crack and break, so upgrading this is definitely recommended. It's not too expensive. This is only about 120 bucks or so, so I highly recommend picking that up. And there's a couple other things that you're going to need as well. We are going to be working with coolant, so you want to make sure that you have some antifreeze coolant on hand. Obviously, I'm just using the OEM BMW coolant. You're also going to be wanting some distilled water and a way to be able to take out some of the coolant. I'm just using a turkey baster. I got this at Walmart, super cheap. But the reason why you're going to need both of these is because the ratio that you need to do is 50-50. This is not pre-mixed, so you're going to need some distilled water and a full gallon of coolant. Basically, I'm going to empty out half of this into another bucket and fill it back up, the rest of the half that I took out with some distilled water. And then I'll have a full bottle of coolant ready to go. So you're not going to be losing too much, but you want to make sure you have this on hand when you're doing it. So let's go ahead and let's get started. First things that I'm going to do is start disconnecting all of the air connections. So the two charge pipes, there's also a connection down here, right there on the J pipe as well. So we're going to do that. Then once we get that all loose, we'll start working through the coolant. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start removing the hose clamps on the charge pipes, just the ones closest to the charge cooler. They are a 7mm. I do have the even cherry charge pipe, so maybe a little bit different for you, but use whatever tool, whatever size you need in order to get those off. All right, so we got the charge cooler hose clamps on the charge cooler side loosened. Now we're actually going to start loosening this bolt right here. I'm just going to use a long screwdriver. You can use a ratchet if you want, but I figured this was the easiest. So we're going to go ahead and loosen that. When you loosen this, you want to make sure you loosen it a lot because the clamp around the actual boot or the silicone hose can be pretty tight just from being heat cycled and driven. So you just want to make sure that's really loose before you start removing. Also, before we move on to the next step, there is a sensor, a plug right there. So we're simply just going to remove that as well while we're here. All you do is kind of push in the tab and push down, and that is disconnected. So we are good there. Make sure you don't lose that. Just kind of put that to the side because you're obviously going to need that later. All right, so now that we got the hoses and the clamps released and loosened, and also the little sensor unplugged, next up we're actually going to start removing the coolant. Now, as I mentioned, there's coolant running through here, so you will make a little bit of a mess. That's why you need the extra coolant on hand. But in order to minimize the amount of mess, what we're actually going to do is drain it manually. Now, there's a couple ways that you can do this. You can actually turn the car on and get the water or the pump moving, and it'll actually flow out. You can use an electric pump to pull all of the coolant out or push it out, or you can do the method that I'm going to be doing, and that is actually just using a simple turkey baster. We're going to open up that back tank there, take out as much coolant as possible, and then we can go ahead and remove it. There's not much coolant in here, but you want to make sure that you do remove it, because if you just start disconnecting these lines right here, you will make a mess and it will not be fun. So I just want to mention this as well before we start doing that. You want to make sure that your engine is completely cold. You don't want to just drive and pull in and start doing this, because if you do that, you will get hurt, you will get burned. So that is not a good thing. So this car has been sitting for a day now. So let's go ahead and start draining the coolant. All right, so we got as much coolant out as we possibly could. This is about how much. This is a Grill's Pickles container. Really good pickles if you guys are into pickles. But that's about how much coolant you actually remove from the rear tank. Now there's still going to be some residual in the lines when you do remove them, but you want to make sure you remove as much as possible. I couldn't get any more out of the tank, so we're pretty good there. Now I do recommend putting some towels, microfibers, paper towels, whatever you want, underneath these 3 lines right here. So 1, 2, and 3. You want to put something underneath just for any drips or any of the remaining coolant in the lines that will drip out. It's not going to be crazy, but you don't want to get it all over your engine bay. So just be cautious. But I do recommend actually removing everything from the J pipe as well as the charge cooler over here. So this whole part is loose. So then once you remove the coolant lines, you can just take the whole entire charge cooler out. Now, one thing I want to mention before you do that, when you take all the lines off, is use these caps that come on your Mishimoto or your charge cooler of choice on the stock charge cooler. So when you take these off, just slap one of those caps on. So when you do remove one line, take one of those caps, put it on there, and it'll reduce the mess even more so. So let's go ahead, let's start removing everything from the charge pipes and the J pipe and everything, and just kind of get that situated, and then we can move on to these 3 lines here. So what I did off camera was just remove it from both charge pipes. All I did was remove or loosen the back clamps as well, and just kind of pulled them off of the ports right here. Then underneath, as I mentioned, loosen that a lot. And I kind of put my hand under here and use the piece right here as leverage and just kind of pried it up. Again, you want to kind of stick a screwdriver there or a big pick tool to kind of loosen up the silicone hose right there. And then you are completely free. So now the only thing connecting this are the 3 coolant lines up here. So let's go ahead and remove those, and then we can go ahead and get this out of the car. One thing I want to note before you start stuffing the towels in, there is this little line right here. And let's see, you can kind of see, yeah, you can see that little clamp right there. All you got to do is just pull that hose off of that clamp since it is connected to the charge cooler. And when you pull it out, that'll be stuck on there. So remove that, then shove all your towels and whatever you're going to be using underneath these lines like that, as much as you possibly can, like that. So now everything is covered and it's not going to get all over the place. And now if you see these little clips on here, basically, well, I actually just pulled up with my finger. You just want to pull it up like that, and then this one can come off. But before I do that, I want to get this one, which is the same size, put it over here. Let's see if I can do this one-handed here. So now, kind of just pull this out. Yeah, so a little bit of coolant is leaking out. That's fine. So I'm going to put that cap on there. And then I'm going to leave this here so I don't spill any extra coolant. But same thing with these other 2. I'm going to go ahead and take off. Let's see if I could just do it on camera as well. This one's a little bit harder to get to. Get under here, pry that up. Same thing, I'm going to take this cap, leave it right here. Oh, that clip just popped back. So let me pull that up again so it's off. Same thing, I'm going to try to, that's going to be too hard. Let me put this down. Okay, put that cap on. A little harder to get to. There we go. And we're going to do the same thing here. Get this clip, pull that up. Now this one I don't have a cap for, so I'm just going to pull it off. Hopefully it doesn't leak too much. Nope, it didn't. All right, so for this line, I'm just taking a glove and I'm actually just going to cover this one up since there seems to be a decent amount of coolant in here. And I just don't want it going everywhere, so let me at least somewhat protect it. And I kind of hoisted it up there or put it on that little tab right there for the engine cover. So it's kind of out of the way. It shouldn't leak, but figured might as well put something on there just in case. All right, so now we can go ahead and actually remove the whole entire charge cooler from the car. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so one other thing, there is a little clip right here on the stock charge cooler with a little connection. It's this one right here. Just pull it off that tab and then you'll be able to take it out. So here we go. This is what it looks like. Here's the intake manifold. Here's the J pipe. There's a throttle body. So we're actually going to be replacing this as well. Pretty easy access. So let's go ahead and remove that, and then we can install that, get that done. Then we can move on to the charge cooler and transferring over the brackets and everything and getting it on the Mishimoto. So let's jump onto the J pipe. Okay, so there's two things that we need to remove off of the J-pipe in order to take this out. The connection right there, there's kind of a pressure clip. You can see it right on top. You just squeeze that and slide that right out. And then right here, you can actually see, kind of hard to see, but see if I can focus on that. Yeah, that little white tab, basically you're going to lift that up. And then once that's released, you can pull this whole thing out. It's a one-time use clip. So once you take that out, you can't reuse it again, but our Motorsports includes new clips and everything, so we don't have to worry about that. So yeah, let's go ahead and remove the sensor as well as the clip, and we can take this whole J-pipe out. All right, so in order to get that little white clip out, let's see if we can zoom in here and get a better angle. All I'm using is a pick tool, and all I did was lift it up. So as you can see, it's completely out. And then what we're gonna do now is actually pull this whole piece out so we can actually get it off of the throttle body. So we'll pull that out. It looks like a spine, kind of crazy looking. There we go. So as you can see, that's what it looks like, one-time use. So you can just toss that, you're not gonna need it again. And now we can actually get the J-pipe off the throttle body. All right, so here's a quick comparison from stock to the ARM Motorsports one. Look how much thinner this is here. Look how much wider this is here. Very, very open, very restricted. A lot more nonsense compared to this, so pretty straightforward. Now, the only things that you're gonna need to install it to the throttle body is this clip right here. So as you can see, there is some inserts there. It just slides right in and clips like just like the coolant lines over here with these little kind of C clips, if you want to call them that. I'm not even sure what the name of these are, but something like that. And basically to lock it down, you just clip it in. All right, so let's go ahead and get the J-pipe installed. Now, there is a rubber seal on the stock J-pipe that you need to remove and insert into this little groove right here. And also, I pre-installed the C-clip or the retaining clip, whatever you want to call it, on the bottom. So once I slip it in, all I gotta do is push it up and it'll lock into place. All right, wow. So the J-pipe is pretty darn hard to get on when you have the O-ring on there, obviously. What I ended up doing, there is some grease in here. As you can kind of see it on the workbench here. In the factory J-pipe, there's some grease. I kind of greased up the O-ring. I also used some glass cleaner. Now you can use Windex and whatnot just because it evaporates. So you spray a little bit on there, and I got it all the way up and it's in place. So I put the retaining clip on, as you can see on the back. I slipped it up from the bottom and it's in there nice and tight, and we're good. But man, that was a struggle. I was not expecting to have to exert that much energy to get that thing on, but it's on. It's just kind of awkward of the angle it's at. So now that we did that, let's go ahead and connect up the little sensor over here. I can't do that one-handed, but I'll do that. And then we can get to finally getting the intercooler into place and start wrapping everything up. All right, so the J-pipe is in. I got everything connected. I did find removing the connection from right here gave me a little bit more slack, so I was able to get this one in. I also sprayed a little window cleaner on there as well for the rubber seal. And then it went right on once I kind of gave it a little bit more muscle. So it's on there nice and firm, and yeah, so we're good to go. So now we can actually start transferring over the brackets underneath the stock charge cooler onto the Mishimoto. They include new screws as well. So we're gonna go ahead and open these little packages up and start getting this thing prepped so we can finally get it in the car. All right, so we have the stock charge cooler flipped over, and these are the things that we need to remove. This bracket, and then there's some screws underneath here as well for the tank. But let's go ahead and start over here. These are a T30, so just gonna go ahead and loosen these up. And the Mishimoto does include new hardware, which are a 3mm. So we're gonna go ahead and use the ones provided. All right, so we're looking right here. The bracket that we just took off simply goes right there. We're gonna take the provided 3mm and just screw them on. So now we're going to remove the tank. These are a T20. Then we're going to remove this little hose clamp, take it off the nipple, and then we can transfer it over to the Mishimoto. All right, last thing we have to remove from the stock charge cooler is the sensor here. So same thing, these are T30, and we're just gonna transfer it over to the Mishimoto. Now keep in mind, do not use these screws on the stock charge cooler because these are made for plastic, and if you use these on the Mishimoto, that will not end well. All right, so we got the entire charge cooler ready to go. I end up cleaning up the brackets a little bit just to kind of, you know, why not? I'm there. I put the silicone coupler on there, tighten down the bottom one a decent amount just so I can at least keep it in the same position. Then I'll tighten it down once I get the charge cooler in. But yeah, so let me go ahead, throw this in, kind of get everything positioned, and we can start tightening everything down and finally getting this thing on the car. That J-pipe, that was the hardest part of this whole thing so far. All right, so we got it into position. All I gotta do is tighten down that clamp. Word of advice is to tighten down the bottom clamp so it stays in position, and you can push it down and it's nice and sealed all around. Went on to the even cherry charge pipes very, very well. Very, very easy to do that. Just everything popped into place. And there is a little kind of grommet that this bracket pops into. And everything's lining up really well. It's not bumping anywhere or anything in the back. There's plenty of clearance here. And also remember to plug in your sensor. Don't forget that. I lost it, so I had to kind of pop it back up a little bit and find it. It is plugged in. So now all I gotta do is just reconnect all the hoses here. So pretty simple, just pop them on like that, clip them down, connect it, use them, push it on, make sure it's fully seated, clip it down, and same thing for this one. All right guys, so I get everything back together, everything fits beautifully, enough clearance on the charge pipe so there's no change in overall positioning of the charge cooler, everything clipped in perfectly. Really, really happy with the install, and not to mention, I think it looks so much better than that thing. Although the little cover from One Vision Performance did look nice, I think this just looks way, way better, and I'm loving the paint matched option I decided to go with. So all we gotta do is basically fill it with coolant. We're gonna fill it back there in the little tank. We're gonna do the 50-50 blend with the distilled water and the antifreeze coolant. So what we got over here, just dump it in until you see it filled up on the max little level in there. And then there's a whole entire bleeding procedure that the car does on its own. You don't have to do the manual burp where you start it up and just let it kind of bubble up and everything. You just do a sequence of events in the car and actually run through a full self-programming, self-bleeding of the entire coolant system. So pretty cool. I'm gonna walk you through that just a moment. So let me get the coolant situated and I'll show you what to do next. All right, so I went ahead and emptied half of this. I have it in here just for now. Now all I'm gonna do is fill up to about here with distilled water and then just mix it up, and then we can dump what we need in there. Now we're not gonna need this full gallon of it. Let's see if I can do this. I guess I can one-handed. But obviously we're not gonna use a full gallon of this when we're refilling. We're just gonna use a little bit of it, but having a mixed bottle of coolant is always good to have on hand. All right, so we are all ready to go. I got this mixed up, shook it up a little bit. Now we're simply just going to remove the cap, and I'm gonna get a funnel so I'm as clean as possible over here, and just refill it. I'm gonna show you the little sensor in there. You can see the little yellow tab. You fill it up to that, and then once you're there, I'll show you the whole bleeding procedure. All right, so I finished filling it up. Now if you look in there, you can see the little yellow lever. It is just barely submerged. You want it right up to that. And then now we can go through the whole bleeding procedure. All right, got everything filled up. Now we're gonna start doing the bleeding process. Now there's a couple ways that you can do this, one of which you can use an actual bleeder where you actually just connect it to that. It basically just pulls all the air out and then refills it with coolant. Takes about 5 minutes. Usually shops have those, but we're doing this in the garage by ourselves, and thankfully BMW has a system to be able to do this. Now, before we get started, I do recommend hooking your battery up to a battery tender. I use the Noco Genius 10. This is for lithium batteries, so we're going to be having the car in accessory mode, so I do recommend hooking it up to one of these just so it doesn't lose power when you're doing this. But I'll leave a link below for that if you guys are interested. But let's go ahead, let's head into the car and let's get this bleeding process started. All right, so to get this started, you want to put the car in accessory mode, so just press it once. Next thing we're actually going to do is turn your fan speed on to 1. And then you're actually going to turn it as hot as it can possibly go. And we're going to turn our headlights on. And then we're going to hold the accelerator pedal for 10 seconds all the way down and then release. And then in about 5 to 6 minutes, you'll start hearing the whole system start going, and then it'll start to bleed. So let's go ahead, hold it down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm going to let it go. Now, like I said, it's not going to start instantly. You're going to have to wait about 5 to 6 minutes or so, and I'll catch back up with you guys once it's started. All right, so about 7 minutes later, I don't know if you guys can hear it, but you can actually feel the coolant going through the hoses. You even said that you can take off the cap to see it going. Yeah, you can just hear water or coolant flushing through the whole system right now. Really cool. So here's our opportunity to kind of check for any leaks. Obviously you want to be checking here and everything back there where you made the connection with the hose, but this is pretty darn awesome. I was sitting here, 6 minutes went by. I was like, maybe I should try doing it again. And then sure enough, all of a sudden I just hear all this coolant rushing through the system. So we are good to go. This is really cool. So we're going to let this run. And then once it's done, we're going to do it again. We're going to top off the tank, a little tank back there, and then do the whole bleed system again just to be sure, and we should be good to go. All right, guys, so it bled, did everything it needs to do. When it's done, the lights and basically the car shuts off. I think it does a full 3 or 4 cycles in each bleed that you do. I just topped it off again, so I'm gonna do the whole bleeding procedure one more time just to be certain and make sure that there's no air bubbles or anything in here, which there shouldn't be, but I just wanted to top it off. Really cool. I'm really happy that it ended up working, and it's a really cool procedure, and it's much easier than doing the whole burping system and running the car and everything and pain in the butt. So really, really cool. I'm gonna go ahead and do that one more time, and then we can wrap the video up. All right, guys, install is complete. Went super smooth. Honestly, the hardest part of the entire install was that J-pipe. Not that it was bad fitment, it's just really hard to get back onto the throttle body with that space or the gasket. And once you get it on there, it slips on, everything is perfect. And man, oh man, how much better does this engine bay look? I mean, it looked good before, but this is just so much better. My gosh, I'm really happy I went with the color match. I think it adds a nice contrast. Granted, I know there's a lot of carbon fiber in here and gray carbon, kind of the same similar color, but at the same time, it flows so well. If I got the black, I think it just would have blended in too much. And plus, it's kind of ordinary. A lot of people have the black one. I honestly don't think I've seen anybody with the color match one, at least in mineral gray. But it really just turned out awesome. Honestly, this took me about 2 hours to do with filming, 2.5 hours or so. And obviously, this was my first time doing it. So next time, I'll probably be able to knock this out in about an hour, just knowing what to expect and obviously not having to film. But I love it. I'm super happy with it. I ended up purchasing this through Envision Tuning. Bryant is my guy over there. I've been buying a lot of stuff from him over the years with my STI. Actually, my first initial purchase of all the modifications, a lot of things that you do see on the car currently, is from him when I first got the car, including the TE37s as well, including the KWs, pretty much everything, minus a few things here and there. I got pretty much everything for this car through Bryant at Envision Tuning. He hooks it up, gets it shipped super fast, and honestly, I don't think there's a better company out there to get you what you need. So that is going to do it for the install of the Mishimoto charge cooler, the ARM Motorsports J-pipe, and I'm super happy that it just turned out exactly the way that I wanted it. I hope this helped you guys install yours. If you have a different charge cooler, you still can follow along. It's the same exact process, but honestly, I don't think there's a better looking and performing one out there other than the Mishimoto. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions at all, be sure to ask them below. But in the meantime, keep it clean, keep it simple. I'll catch you guys in the next one.